Smiler.
The Smiler, the world's first 14-looping roller coaster. Book now at altontowers.com.
What was that? I don't know how many other people had the same experience, but for me personally, this 2013 TV advert for the Smiler terrified me as a kid. Now, in case you don't know, the Smiler is a very famous roller coaster located at Alton Towers here in the UK. It's famous for many reasons, one of which being the fact that it is currently the only roller coaster in the world to have 14 inversions. Even after 13 years, it still holds its world record for the most times you're flipped upside down on a coaster. Although if you look beyond coasters, you could probably get more inversions from Toxicator at the same park, especially if they decide to run the Extreme Edition. But either way, in terms of roller coasters, the Smiler has remained famous and popular largely thanks to its world record number of inversions. But another reason for why it's so popular is because of its very unique and unsettling theming, much of which was shown off in that advert that I played to you at the start. Now, when I first saw this ad, I had no idea what the ride was actually about. I didn't care about the world record that it broke. All I knew based off of this trailer was that if you rode it, you were basically accepting your fate and would inhale some freaky Joker gas and be stuck in a perpetual creepy smile. And that was what terrified me about this advert. It was body horror mixed with the uncanny valley, all whilst the most intense part of In the Hall of the Mountain King blared out in the background. There was absolutely no way that you would have gotten me to ride this coaster back in the day, because this advert just freaks me out so much. But that wouldn't have mattered to be fair, as I was too short to ride it anyway. But regardless, because of my memories of this ad, the Smiler has always been a coaster which has unnerved me through its theming. And eventually, I discovered that this TV advert was not the only source of nightmare fuel related to the advertising of this ride, as it turns out that Alton Towers markets their roller coasters as if they're horror films, not fun days out in a theme park. I mean, the Smiler isn't even the first time they've gone completely crazy with their marketing, as they seem to have a habit of making even the most simple roller coasters seem like a saw trap where you only have a 50% chance of living. And Alton doesn't even have a saw trap, it's Thorpe Park which has that. Actually no, Hero at Flamingo Land is the real saw trap. But, joking apart, I honestly really love the work of the Alton Towers marketing team, as they have created some truly memorable advertisements which people still talk about all these years later. I mean, just look at Oblivion for example. It's one of my personal favourite rides of the park, and is conveniently located right next to the Smiler, but it hinges all of its excitement on one drop. Specifically, the world's first vertical drop in a roller coaster. It's actually 87.5 degrees, but shh. Now, an advert for Oblivion could have taken the easy route and simply shown a video of the drop and had a guy stand next to it saying, "Look, it's vertical," kind of. But instead, the advert is ominous, mysterious, unnerving, and it frames the titular drop in a very unique way. And of course, it's paired with the iconic tagline for the ride.
Don't look down. Check! I'm looking down!
Before eventually showing the drop in action. Now that's memorable. It's unnerving, but that's why I love it. Honestly, the people who make these adverts really miss their calling on making full-fledged horror movies, but whatever, at least we get a glimpse into their creative vision through ads like the ones for 13. This is an ad where a girl sings the Teddy Bear Picnic song in a way that's totally not creepy at all.
You'd better not go alone.
I just want to remind you all that 13 is technically a family coaster. Yeah, I'll admit that the marketing went a bit too far here, as it did incorrectly portray 13 as if it were the scariest and most intense ride in the park, when in actuality, it's a bit timid.
Well, that ride was a bit timid. At least it's time now to get off. Apparently, little jolt there. Okay, let's get up. Ah! Oh! Oh! Ah!
However, the Smiler is a ride which absolutely deserved a marketing campaign which emphasized intensity and horror, because its tangled web of black looping tracks certainly makes it one of the scariest looking rides of the park alongside Oblivion, Nemesis and Bluey Here Come the Grannies. However, the marketing guys weren't interested in simply showing off the ride's quirks in a normal way. No. Instead, they decided to create their own unique horror IP which would become instantly recognizable to anyone who saw it. And honestly, I respect that approach a whole lot more, as it adds so much to the ride's overall identity in the long term. And that's what I want to cover in this video. I want to talk about why the Smiler's marketing, and roller coaster marketing in general, is really cool to me. Now, before I talk about what specifically makes the Smiler's marketing so noteworthy for me, I first want to compare this ride's unique theming to another similar ride which isn't anywhere near as memorable with its identity. That way you can see why I find the Smiler so special by comparison. And the ride that I'm comparing it to is Colossus, located at Thorpe Park. Now, Colossus used to be the roller coaster with the most inversions back when it opened, as it has a grand total of 10 loops, but nowadays, the coaster isn't seen as being anything all that special. It's probably best known for having a banger soundtrack and for killing anyone who dares to sit in the back row, but apart from that, I mean, it looks kinda cool I guess, but it really doesn't have much beyond its loops. And I think that the advert reflects this fact, as it really isn't anything all that crazy. It just consists of a bunch of people acting all dizzy because of the loops and everything, and that's it. Whilst it effectively shows you the gimmick of the ride, it doesn't do much about the theming. And the reason it doesn't do much is because I don't know what the theming of Colossus is meant to be. It's either a lost city or horoscopes, but I genuinely can't tell. Now admittedly, I do like Colossus more than most people do, but it definitely doesn't stand out to me beyond its double-digit inversions. But I think this highlights why the Smiler feels so much more significant and impactful by comparison, as it had theming which led to memorable marketing which warranted a video like this. And the reason for why the marketing was memorable was because it went beyond simply bringing up the high loop count. It didn't use the gimmick of the ride as a one-trick pony to base all of the advertisements off of, as that would be boring. Instead, it was far more concerned with telling its own, unique story, which only subtly tied into the inversions. So, what is the story of the Smiler exactly? Well, the Smiler was an experiment created by the Ministry of Joy, an organisation first set up by a mysterious man called Dr. Kelman. The Ministry's aim is to remove all negativity from the world by forcing everyone to simply smile and be happy through a process called marmalization. And no, that's not A Day Out with Paddington. Marmalization is essentially a form of hypnosis which aims to collect the patient by disorientating them with imagery, sounds, lights and gas, until they are basically forced to smile. However, these immoral experiments haven't been going too well, and so many half-marmalized patients have been locked away as these empty husks of themselves who are stuck smiling after their minds were broken by marmalization. So yeah, the Smiler ride was essentially used as a basis for a psychological body horror story, and I find that terrifying, but really cool at the same time. This narrative would honestly work perfectly as a premise for a horror movie, and yes, they should do a Smiler horror film. Yet instead, it's being used to promote a roller coaster of all things, and I love it for that, and I can't help but spread that love within this video. However, before I get to the fun part where I discuss the unhinged ways that the story for this ride was conveyed, I feel like I ought to address a major and unfortunate part of this ride's history. Considering the fact that the topic of this video is related to things I find disturbing and scary about the Smiler, I feel like it would be downright irresponsible and insensitive of me to not at least acknowledge the real disturbing incident which occurred on this ride back in 2015. Now, I won't go into detail on what happened during the Smiler crash, as it can get pretty graphic and there are many other videos on the topic, but I just wanted to acknowledge it anyway in order to say that it was a tragedy which never should have happened. I will continue to feel sympathy for the victims involved, and the topic of this video isn't meant to discredit what happened that awful day. It's just really unfortunate that some aspects of the marketing and overall theming that I'm going to be discussing within this video now have rather problematic connotations which are associated with them as a result of this crash. And that's why I couldn't not bring this incident up. And one clear example of where these unfortunate parallels can be seen is within the mobile game. Yes, the Smiler actually had a mobile game made for it which was solely designed to advertise the ride. Now, normally I would download this game myself and play it for you all within this video, however, it was actually taken off of the App Store directly because of the crash. Why? Because the aim of the game is to stop the car from derailing as it goes around the track. Yeah. But that's not the worst part. Fellow British YouTuber Yap Emporia made a fantastic video on this game, and in it she was actually able to get it working on an old iPad, and so she took the game to Alton Towers in order to show off the AR feature. And what did she discover? When you highlight the main ride sign, the car crashes through the sign. Yikes. So yeah, perfectly understandable why the game was removed. But when putting the game's unfortunate dated elements aside, this right here perfectly encapsulates why I still love the marketing for this ride. How many times can you say that a bloody roller coaster got a whole ass mobile game made to promote it? Even after 13 years, this still stands out as a unique way to market a theme park ride, especially a UK theme park ride, and nothing else at Alton has ever been given this kind of treatment. And as for the game itself, from what I've been able to see within various YouTube videos, it honestly looks kinda cool. First of all, it's a neat little time capsule of what X Sector used to look like back in 2013. You know, back when it actually had flat rides. Not gonna lie, I really miss Enterprise. That was one of my favourites as a kid, and I'm mad that it's been removed and replaced with air particles rather than anything cool. If anyone at Alton is watching this, please bring back the flat rides. Toxicator can only get you so far. But alongside that, I also really like the aesthetic of this game. Yes, the graphics are very basic, but the colours are really cool and the subliminal hypnotic imagery definitely adds to the overall theming. Even if it can be a tiny bit nauseating, which is a common theme for this ride, I'll admit. But the imagery is still pretty cool. We get to see images of Dr. Kelman, people smiling in uncanny ways, and it just generally makes you feel a bit uneasy, which is perfect for this ride. Subliminal horror is a really cool kind of horror to me, and I think the Smiler consistently uses it so well within its inclusion of flashing, smiling images, as well as through its easily recognisable and iconic main logo, which dominates the skyline here as it can be seen projected on the frickin' moon, which is about the only place where the logo wasn't projected in real life. And this talk of the logo conveniently leads me on to my next point. Now, the Smiler logo is already iconic enough as is. It's arguably one of the most instantly recognisable logos for anything theme park related. But my goodness, if you were around this country in 2013, you are not escaping this logo. You are going to remember it as it could be seen everywhere, from Alton's own adverts and websites, to tanks at sea life centres and train stations. And then they went completely off the rails and started projecting the logo onto various buildings, including the Elizabeth Tower of all things. I don't know how on earth they got permission to do that, but it's certainly one hell of a memorable image. Imagine being drunk as you walk through London and look over to the Houses of Parliament like you always do, and then see this thing smiling back at you. I can't even imagine what would go through your head at that moment other than the thought that the country has officially been taken over by the Ministry of Joy. Oh, and they also spray painted the logo onto some sheep. This isn't as crazy as the London projections, but I just had to mention it because it's kind of funny. It's so dumb that I love it. So yeah, the logo became an iconic talking point throughout this country thanks to this attempt at viral marketing, and it also added a lot to the subliminal image point that I made earlier, as this creepy smile would not leave you alone. You could not escape the Smiler. Oh, and then there's the poster, which certainly contributed massively to why I was so terrified of the Smiler back in the day. Why did it freak me out, you may ask? Well, just look at it. Oh my big Bob, I hate this. None of this looks right. It is all just so wrong. I don't like this, and especially not this. This is all way too uncanny for me. And unfortunately, this uncanniness is a common occurrence within Smiler material. It apparently wasn't good enough to simply show people smiling. Instead, the smiles are being stretched out and distorted in a way which makes my uncanny valley sensors go through the roof. And that's why I hate this poster so much, because this face is in my nightmares. And that's one reason for why I hate it. But the other reason is because I have personal beef with this poster. You see, Kellogg's cereal often had theme park advertisements on the back of their boxes, and as a kid, I was an avid Rice Krispies and Cocoa Pops enjoyer, so I saw these boxes a lot. Now, I didn't mind it when these boxes were advertising nice things like Galactica, but in 2013, they just had to put the Smiler poster on the back of the box. Gee, thanks Merlin, I really appreciate that. My morning cereal came with a free jump scare rather than a toy, you bastards. But hey, at least the cereal box advertising was memorable, and because I didn't know about the Game of Projections back in the day, this was certainly an effective way to get me to know about this ride. However, whilst all of these stories about the marketing are pretty funny and memorable, they aren't all that scary. Me being freaked out over a cereal box is just me being a pussy, but it's not the reason for why I was incentivized to make this video. Instead, I want to draw attention to the main thing that was used to advertise this ride outside of the main TV commercial. And that was this 4-part analog horror miniseries released online called Smile Always. And this was unnerving. In short, Smile Always is a found-footage horror series focused on the characters of Dan and Trisha, who discover the truth about the Ministry of Joy after investigating a guy called Miles Cedars, who went through the marmalization process. Now, this series has a very eerie vibe to it throughout, and it definitely harkens back to the most effective and famous found-footage horrors out there, like the Blair Witch Project. From the camera work feeling very close to the action, to the growing tension as things get weirder, to the ominous messages which begin each episode where we learn that Dan and Trish went missing shortly after filming. What we are watching here is the final remnants of these people, and we learn alongside them that they have discovered something they really shouldn't have. And these mystery and horror elements are arguably conveyed the best within the first part of this series, which is arguably the most famous video of the lot. Within this episode, we see Dan and Trish enter Miles' house, and everything just feels so off here. Miles' overly friendly and smiley attitude doesn't feel right, the Do Not Resist poster is totally not ominous at all, and in the garden we have a group of people laughing to the tune of In the Hall of the Mountain King. Now yes, this is a fun reference to Alton Towers itself, as the Mountain King leitmotif is iconic within the park, but within this video, boy is it creepy. and after an incredibly awkward interview scene where you can't help but worry that something bad is going to happen, we watch Dan and Trish snoop around the house until they find some videotapes. And then, you know what? I'm just going to show you what happens next.
No, seriously, stick them in the bag. They might be good for research or something.
What do you think? Right.
Oh my big Bob, what is that? Nope, I hate this. This jump scare had every reason to be goofy looking and stupid, and maybe some people found that to be the case, but for me personally, the unexpected nature of it nearly caused me to crap myself the first time round. And that face is so uncanny once again, I hate it. So yeah, an uncanny image on top of an unexpected jump scare was enough for this specific video to become quite infamous amongst parkgoers. And this is only the first part of the series, the rest aren't much better. But thankfully, they don't cause me to nearly have a heart attack. Now, episodes 2 and 3 kind of follow a similar formula to each other. They start off with Dan and Trish processing what they just seen before they eventually decide to pop in one of the videos that they nicked from Miles' house. How did they get away from the house, you may ask?
Use your imagination.
Anyway, these 2 episodes are each focused on a different videotape that the characters are watching, and both tapes are specifically focused on the ministry itself and the actions of Dr. Kelman. Now, part 3 is quite tame in comparison to the other parts of this series, as it mostly just consists of Dr. Kelman sitting in a room and talking about marmalization. Side note, but this was actually the first time that the term was mentioned within this series. However, the video still feels quite eerie, particularly through how Dr. Kelman talks about people as if they're test subjects rather than human beings. He's trying to act more vulnerable within this video as he opens up about his worries that the marmalization experiments aren't working properly, but all I really see here is a sick and twisted old man. And this perception that I had largely came about thanks to the previous part, which directly showed Dr. Kelman putting poor Miles through the correctional procedure. And this process not only led to an Oblivion reference,
"Don't look down,"
but it also caused Miles to be stuck in this unnatural, creepy smile which yes isn't as uncanny as the other one, but the more realistic imagery still feels off. And then the video ends with a bombardment of hypnotic imagery as if it's trying to marmalize the viewer too. And speaking of which, part 4 shows us that Trisha has also been hypnotized to the point that she's drawn the Smiler logo all over her room, as if we haven't seen this image enough. Dan then walked in on this before getting on a FaceTime call with Miles, who once again makes the creepy face, and interestingly, this is the first time that any kind of bride is mentioned. 4 episodes in, and if you didn't know what was going on, this will be your first indication that this whole series was all just advertising for a roller coaster. But before then, you wouldn't have been able to guess, as this series is so effective at being a fully fledged and legitimately unnerving found footage analog horror series. And once again, it adds so much to the ride's identity beyond basic advertising, as it expands upon the lore by giving us a look into the psychology of Dr. Kelman, and the impact of the Smiler itself. This means that when you see the ride for yourself, all of its elements hit a lot harder if you're more familiar with its lore. It's no longer just a cool looking roller coaster, as its loops, imagery and structure all have a thematic purpose which is cool to watch. And with that point made, the final thing that I want to discuss within this video is the way that the park itself advertises the Smiler to you. Yes, I would argue that good theming in an area or a queue still counts as advertising, as it is trying to convince you to spend 2 hours of your day standing in a straight line. Unless you use the single rider queue, that is, as that actually saves so much time. Fun fact, when I last went on this ride, the queue was advertised as 70 minutes, but because I used single rider, I got on it in 20, thus making it one of the shortest queues of the day. No joke, I actually ended up queuing longer for Bluey. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, I made sure to actually get my sorry ass down to Alton in order to get footage for this video and give you proper thoughts on the ride experience. It was actually the first time that I've been to Alton in 7 years. And if you want proof of my trip, here's a low quality picture of me on the Smiler doing a creepy smile throughout the entire thing. I couldn't be asked to pay for the high quality picture though. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Let's now discuss how effective I found the environment around the Smiler during the time where I was there. Well, first of all, I think that the ride fits perfectly within X Sector. That area is designed to be a secret government testing facility, and the Lord of Darkness has already been conducting his own human experiment since 1998 of chucking people into a big hole, so the Ministry of Joy fits right in alongside that. And hell, even Alton themselves put in additional effort to ensure that the Smiler fit in with the overall lore of the area, by specifically mentioning on their website that the Lord of Darkness approved for the Ministry of Joy to set up their facilities next door. So that begs the question, do these two men know each other? That's a terrifying thought. Either way, the connection between these two rides is really cool. But boy oh boy does the Smiler's inclusion make the area very loud. Not only was there already a lot of screaming from Oblivion, but now we've got additional screaming from the Smiler because people are such pussies who can't handle a roller coaster. But that's not the worst of it. The worst part is the fact that someone decided to turn the iconic I'm a Score theme for this ride up to 11 to the point that it deafens the whole area. I mean, just listen to some of the raw footage that I took when I was there. I wasn't anywhere near the entrance, by the way. Now, I wouldn't mind if the music in question was something that I could happily listen to on repeat, like the epic rave music of Oblivion.
He was in here tonight, raving.
However, the theme that's being blared out is a theme that's deliberately designed to get on your nerves. I mean, just listen. Look, I genuinely love the Smiler theme. If you listen to the whole 3-minute track, it captures the vibe of the ride perfectly. It's ominous, disturbing, the metallic scraping makes the whole thing feel off, the screaming mixed with the laughs is unsettling, and the main laughing melody people complain about is effective in acting as a fake happy front to a sinister underbelly. It's similarly effective to the videos that play in the Smiler gift shop, where it all seems really happy-go-lucky on the outside, but it's clear that there's something sinister going on underneath. And yes, these videos do have the creepy smile too. But going back to the music, whilst it does work really well in a vacuum, it's clearly not supposed to be listened to on repeat, and especially not at this higher volume. Now to be fair, it didn't affect me that much on my latest trip, thanks to the single rider benefit, which thus meant that I was able to speed past the outdoor section where the music is most prominent. But I know people who have done 2 hours in this thing, and that does not seem fun at all, especially with the coaster itself roaring above you whilst you're trapped within a chicken cage with no shade. So basically, whilst you're queuing for this ride, you're left feeling absolutely miserable as you slowly go insane. Great! And if that wasn't bad enough, once you get to the quieter indoor bit, your reward is enough flashing lights to give you a seizure even if you're not epileptic. And I should know, because when I first went on this ride in 2019, I had a headache after being in this part of the queue for a while, and I don't even have epilepsy. All this part of the queue ended up doing was piss me off and make me not enjoy the ride afterwards. Although, to be fair, it wasn't as bad this time around in comparison to how I remembered it. Now, I don't know whether they toned down the flashing in the years since, or whether I just got used to it, or if the single rider queue skipped the worst part, but either way, I distinctly remembered the flashing going on for 20 seconds every minute, but now it felt like it was only 5 seconds every 5 minutes, which is much more tolerable. I mean, I still don't like it, but it's nowhere near as bad as I remember it being. Hell, it ended up being so infrequent that I wasn't actually able to get footage of it for this video, so maybe I wasn't the only one to complain about it and they responded by toning it down in the end. But even without it, this queue does still do a good job at driving you insane, which I suppose is kind of the point. The ride is trying to hypnotise you after all, so it makes sure that you are thoroughly broken and crazy before you even sit down and then fully disorientates you with all of its loops, and then it gives you an exit path which you can't bloody see through. It's effective, don't get me wrong, but personally, I feel like it maybe goes a bit too far to the point that it's just annoying and unpleasant for me. And it certainly doesn't help that the ride station itself is so freaking boring. It's literally just a white room. Where's the atmosphere that you had just built up? The Bluey station was honestly more decked out than this. After all that effort to get me to feel the hypnosis of the ride, we're suddenly thrown into a squeaky clean IKEA office. Thankfully, the ride itself is able to recapture that atmosphere. But still, the station has always felt a bit lackluster for me. And what makes me extra annoyed is the fact that the original plan for the queue was supposed to be this abandoned, grimy hospital, and that would have been so sick. But no, we got epilepsy and IKEA instead. So yeah, if you couldn't tell, whilst I do love the theming and advertising for this ride, the queue is by far the worst part for me. I just find it really obnoxious, and it honestly puts me off of going on the ride, because I know I'm not going to enjoy the queue, which is where you spend most of your time. It's an ironic situation where the queue causes my heart rate to go up more than the ride itself, because it's certainly not neurodivergent friendly, let me tell you. Thank goodness for Single Rider as it cuts down some of the misery, and it's free unlike FastPass. Would highly recommend if you hate the outdoor bit, and if you hate the indoor bit, I'm sorry but you still have to deal with that. Anyway, now that I've bitched and moaned about the queue, what do I think of the ride itself? I mean come on, I can't make a Smiler video without talking about how I feel about the actual ride. So, do I think that all of this hype and amazing marketing was worth it? Well, I personally think that the Smiler is a really fun ride. Cold take, I know. It's a decent length, which is unheard of for UK rides, most of the loops are really fun, although some are definitely smoother than others, and this ride makes the feeling of being flipped all over the place actually fun. And I was on the back row for this ride last time, and I didn't die unlike back row Colossus. Although to be fair, the ride was likely smooth for me because the car's got new wheels for the 2026 season, so I imagine that those who went on it last year had a very different experience. Now admittedly, I am still a bit disappointed by the drop that comes after the vertical lift hill, as after all that build up, the drop off feels kinda mid, especially in comparison to a similar lift hill on Saw. But that's only a minor nitpick. For the most part, I have a really fun time with this ride, and it's one that I will happily go back to whenever I can face the queue. However, I do still think that maybe its intensity is a little bit overhyped. The quality of the ride is strong, but many people will claim that it's the most intense ride at the park, and I really don't feel it. I'll be brutally honest, I think I get more visceral intensity from those airtime hills on Wicker Man, as well as Oblivion's drop obviously. I don't know, maybe I'm just not phased about inversions, but either way, the ride itself never really freaked me out in the same way that its marketing did. But hey, I'm still having fun at least, and that's the most important part for me. However, I think I'm personally a fan of the ride for its theming rather than its inversions, and luckily the theming is conveyed really well here. While some elements sadly had to be removed following the crash, like the "you are corrected" sign, what's left is still really cool to see. And I definitely think that the best element of this ride has to be the titular Marmalizer that's dead in the centre. This horrifying monstrosity immediately draws your attention, and it's great to be on the ride as it constantly interacts with the Marmalizer in order to truly sell the illusion that you, the rider, are being marmalized yourself. And if you couldn't pick up on what the machine is actually doing to you, don't worry, there's a handy dandy sign in X Sector which goes over the whole process and the function of each part of the machine. Let's give it a read, shall we? We've got the Tickler, which tickles you until you can't resist smiling, the Inoculator, which gives you a blast of happiness, whatever that means, the Flasher, wait, the Flasher? Well, I'm sure that'll make someone very happy. Obviously I'm joking, it's actually just flashing lights designed to disorientate you, as if we didn't already have enough of that within the queue. And then there's the Giggler, which is the laughing gas from the TV advert which freaked me out so much. And finally, there's the main Hypnotizer, which is designed to disrupt your self-awareness. And all of these elements, on top of the loops, are put together to mess with your brain so much until you can't help yourself from smiling just like Miles Cedars. Or you can be stupid and do a creepy smile before the ride even begins because you think it'll be funny, but in actuality it does nothing but hurt your mouth and give you jaw ache for the rest of the day. So yeah, the theming for this ride is really strong within both the advertising and the ride itself. And whilst these elements are still conveyed within the queue, it's definitely not my favourite one to be in. But luckily, it doesn't take away from my overall enjoyment of the experience, and the ride as a whole has certainly remained memorable for me for many reasons. It's a fun experience that I always try to do every time I visit Alton, and whilst it's not my favourite ride in the park, as that honour goes to my boy Nemesis, it is still easily one of the most memorable, cool, and famous coasters from this whole country. And that's thanks not only to its world record inversion count, but also through its brilliant, unique theming which is conveyed to the general public in crazy, creepy, and downright unhinged ways. But I love it all. As I said before, the Smiler would honestly make for a fantastic horror movie, as it's got so many great ideas which you can play around with. Theme park ride movies can be good after all, so I'd love to see what someone would do with this material. And no, the Smile movies don't count. And hey, if we can't get a full movie, I'd at least love a Nemesis Subterra-esque ride that's themed to the Smiler. They already did Smiler-themed scare mazes after all, so I'd love a more permanent ride that aims to expand upon the lore even more. And you've certainly got the space for it within X Sector, as there's nothing there anymore. I don't know whether Alton actually wants to expand upon this ride's lore anymore, out of fear of creating further unfortunate parallels to a real tragedy like what happened with the mobile game, and honestly, I don't blame them if that's the case, but if they can add something, I would absolutely love to see it. And if not, hey, at least it stands out on its own as a great attraction at a great park, and it certainly makes for a memorable image within X Sector. Oh, and speaking of which, I quite like how much this tangled spaghetti of jet black track contrasts with the innocence of Tower Street. In fact, a lot of the park kind of contrasts with the very front when you think about it. So many of the rides at Alton Towers are horror themes like 13, Wicker Man, and Nemesis, and of course we've got the human testing of Oblivion and Smiler. But this contrasts so much with the front of the park, which is very kiddie by comparison. This is where CBeebies Land is located after all, and that area includes my beloved Bluey Coaster, which is legitimately a great ride, even putting my fan bias aside. But either way, I feel like this interesting contrast of tones between the happy-go-lucky front and ominous back can actually be clearly seen within the Smiler's TV advert that I love so much. The ad starts out with a happy-looking Tower Street, before descending into the nightmare that is the Smiler, and this image has got me thinking about something. Is this ad implying that Tower Street is merely a front that's being used by the Ministry of Joy to present everything as happy and cheerful in order to cover up the sinister underbelly? I mean, think about it. It's the exact same practice that they used in Miles Cedars' garden and within the Smiler Shop videos. It's the reason for why the music sounds the way that it does. So it's not that crazy to consider that this same technique could be used here. Which then begs the question. How deep does the Smiler lore go? Is the whole park a front for their experiments? Are they an offshoot of Phalanx? Are the Dark Forest Wraiths more failed experiments from them? Do they know the Wicker Man? Can Bluey be trusted, or is she an agent of the Ministry of Joy designed to keep children happy and smiling? Oh my goodness, Bluey's been marmalized. The park's been taken over. I've uncovered the truth. Don't worry everyone, I'm going to expose the Ministry's lies and stop them once and for all! You know what? I like that. That's a fun way to end this video. Anyway, time to wrap things up. Have I been editing too long, or can I hear the Smiler theme? I swear, this is one of Big Teddy's pranks. I'm ready to kill him. Hello? Look, I know there's someone here. I heard the music. You can come out now.
Join us. This episode of Bluey is called Marmalization.
Join us. We'll make you happy. We'll keep you smiling. You belong to the Smiler.
Smile, 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 smile always.